Good morning to all of you. Before we start today's session, please feel free to do event check-in. This will give you access to additional resources and information about events that we are running on Reactor, which are around similar topics to today's session. Also, you will be able to access Microsoft Consult hiring link from today's session. I will share the event check-in link with the event ID in the Q&A section again. Also, we have launched our Reactor group on LinkedIn. Please feel free to join our group to get the latest update about session that's happening on Reactor. I will share the link soon. Thank you all once again for joining us today. My name is Rashmita and I'm the event planner for Microsoft Reactor Bengaluru, India. The session will run over the next 1.5 hours, including Q&A. The session is being recorded and will be uploaded to our Reactor YouTube channel within 3 to 4 days. I will share the link to our YouTube channel in the chat section soon. Quick word on a code of conduct. We display this at all Microsoft Reactor events that we run, and it's just a reminder to be aware of others. Key thing to take out here is to be respectful of other people's views, understanding of differences, being kind and considerate in the way you engage. The chat will be open throughout, and we do encourage you all to participate. Also, please keep your mics muted during the session. I would now like to welcome Subhajit, our speaker for today's session. Subhajit has close to 2 decades of exposure in designing, implementing, and managing software development projects using Microsoft and open source technologies. In recent years, he has been leading large and complex projects in Azure, IoT, enterprise integrations, web applications, mobility, and space. But for now, I'll hand over to Subhajit to begin the session. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Rashmita, and thank you all for joining. So I see that we have about 20 plus participants already. So may I request that you just take in this survey so that we get to know who do we have in the audience today. The link is also there in the chat. So I see that already 7 people have responded. Probably I'll wait for 30 seconds to see some more so that I get a wheel, and I'll share the the stuff as well. So this is something it would look like. Okay, so far 11 responses. Okay, so I think we have like more developers and architects, and we do have folks who are also curious to learn, right? Okay, how about let's see like where the expertise lies in terms of the Azure API management. Okay, I see that most of the people seem to be pretty new to Azure API management, as indicated, right? So most the majority is having only beginner knowledge. All right, so what we'll do is that we'll go through this stuff, and as you get questions, feel free to ask. All right, so today we are going to discuss about like how you can design great API developer experiences, primarily using 2 tools, GitHub and API management. A small disclaimer, when it comes to solution design and architecture, there are multiple ways how a problem can be solved. However, I have based this discussion primarily on the fact that how you can leverage the out of the box capabilities that come from Microsoft products, right? And with minimal customization and mostly via configuration, how you can design great experiences for the API developer community. Before we get started, a little bit about me. Yeah, I'm a Bengali, born and brought up in Guwahati, Assam. I'm a BE in ENC and a PG diploma in information technology. I have over 19 years of IT experience. Started my career way back in 2002, and has worked across multiple companies before joining Microsoft, and then currently I'm playing the role of a solutions architect. Recent times, mostly focusing on microservices, web and mobile apps, Azure IoT, enterprise integrations, DevOps, and SRE. And there are two quotes, that inspired action. One from one of the footballers, throw me a challenge and I'll give you a reason to celebrate. And the other one, this Winston Churchill. And if anybody who's, there's a movie, the Blackout, the Darkest Hour, which got, recently it was there. So there it says, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. All right. So, what's the inspiration for today's session? I've recently authored a book, how to design API first enterprise architectures in Azure. It talks about, if you go through the book, it's available on Amazon. It gives you a very, the whole 9 years view of how you should, approach your API architectures and API solutions. And mostly I've given a case study based example, so as the theory is there, it is augmented with a case study, and you can do that, and hopefully if you are able to finish the book, you can get a good view of how to build API architectures, how to do how to build reliable and resilient solutions, and even how to build high scale enterprise integrations in Azure. Okay. So there are two takeaways, that I would like you to have from this session. Basically how to. The first one is around, we'll present this concept of how do you productize your API assets using Microsoft technologies, right? And then it will be followed through, like a solution approach and a demo, where I'll show you how you can use GitHub and Azure API Management to build an awesome API developer experience for the enterprises. Okay, so let's look into some of the business drivers and requirements that are at play whenever you have to build any API developer experience. So there are a few API trends that are there in the industry. So I have listed the top 7, and the source for that is also mentioned there. So the first thing is about real-time data synchronization. Essentially, because we have all this polyglot persistence, and there are multiple services, other things involved, and so there is a lot that goes on whenever you are building any application in the modern world, right? So what the enterprises expect is that the data across all these various islands should actually get synchronized in real time, so that the updates can be pushed out instantaneously. Okay. We have this open source has started getting a lot of popularity, and we all know that you can build APIs using Node.js and various other open source technologies. Omnichannel integration, I mean, this is somewhat a bit of overly used term, but essentially it means that you build one entry point, and that can be accessed via your mobile device or your browser or even devices. Okay, so you offer a seamless experience or a consistent experience for the consumer via any of the channel they are accessing your platform. Yeah, I mean data, so as you capture data through all your the APIs and all, so how do you visualize that and derive business insights, because they are critical to define your future roadmaps and other business bets. Okay, so how can you derive the insights out of it? And API as a service, I think this is something that is becoming a popular trend. As organizations build services, I mean, if you take the recent example of the COVID situation, right? I mean, we had the data was managed by the the governments, and they kind of provided the API so that there were all these apps that integrated with it, and they were able to get real-time updates and information, right? So, and in future, that's how most of the enterprises will function. They are going to expose APIs that can be consumed by other API developers to build different other experiences. So the focus of the session is around this particular block. How what is an API as a service? And there are two other improved end user experience that goes without saying, right? And yeah, I mean the technology landscape has been changing at a very rapid pace, and as new stuff emerge, there's a need to do an integration. So what is API first architecture? So it's basically about reimagining your business and IT strategy. Okay, so you have to think about platforms and not just apps. I mean, traditionally, like we used to think of building, one-off applications and that's it, right? That's no longer going to be the case in an enterprise. You have to think of, like building a platform of, services which, interact with each other, and then you build the API app layer on top of it. You have to think about the consumers and not just users. OK. And you have to think about extensibility and ease of integration, right? So essentially, you have to treat all your APIs as digital assets, right? Which would be, which would be acting as accelerators of innovation and would, generate revenue through them. And what we are seeing is that, that IT systems are more than just being a system of record. Legacy systems more like, you have this interface, you save some data. It's no longer going to be there, because in the new world, data is the new currency, right? And you can, and the more seamless exchange of it happens, the more beneficial it is for the enterprise. Hence, like you must treat APIs as first-class citizens within a digital enterprise. So what, so when we say that, developer experience, right? So why does it matter, right? So, there has been a traditional shift in terms of, what it means. And, we have seen this rise of what I call as the API developer experience. It basically means that, that what is the experience that the third party developer who are using your platform or service, right? And, how they find it intuitive, right? And how usable it is, and, how they can, kind of consume it and build the additional experiences, right? The objective is that they are going to, deliver the solutions, and we'll look at, in a slide, what does the API value chain look like, right? So we need to build in support for them, right? So we have to reimagine API developers as API consumers, right? And what are the tenets that, that should be the focus? We have to make it easy to understand. We make it easy to use. And, like if they need any help, we make it easy for them to get that. And we have to promote community contribution, right? I mean, if the developer community, they get engaged, and, they can enhance, right? So any enterprises, right, can actually, get a lot of benefit from all these kind of, like the developers who stay connected with their, the platforms, and, also provide, like additional solutions and other services. So essentially, it's all about consumption, right? We all know that, right? And that's why, like we henceforward will be calling them more like API consumers, right? And we all know that API consumers, the more the consumption, it can significantly impact the bottom line for the enterprise. Okay, so when it comes to API productization, okay, what does the value chain look like? Okay, so typically it starts with an API service provider, okay, which is basically the enterprise that will host the digital assets, right? And then, like those are consumed by the API consumer or the integrator, who would be like typically developers or partners who build applications by consuming these APIs, right? And then eventually the benefit, in the last block in the value chain is the end user, the customer, right? Who's going to benefit, right? Eventually by using all those apps, right? So as you may see that while the digital assets, the API servicer to the API consumer to the end user, right? So this is how the flow of API value chain looks like. Okay. So now moving on, like from a requirement standpoint, right? So what are the typical high level use cases for, when you are building any API developer experiences, right? What an API developer, they kind of, so I've listed a very subset rudimentary list of use cases, right? And you can always extend it with, your enterprise context, or, like what exactly are your requirements, right? But essentially, I bucketize them into 4 blocks, right? So one is this consumer portal, where somebody will come in, uh, they get to browse the API products, right? And they go and browse the code SDKs, right? And they participate in any discussions, right? Or any raise any issues, right? Where, so basically this would serve as your more like digital marketing kind of a platform, right, for you. And then you augment that with what we call as a developer portal, where, you have all the listing of your APIs, right? And their details, right? What are the operations that are supported, right? And like even to the level of method level detail, and we'll see all of that in the demo, right? And even you offer the ability for them to invoke, any of the operations and test it out, how it works, right? And if once people are interested, right? So all these developers, you would like to convert them into, registered users. So typically you will provide this, my account management app, yeah, an interface, where they log in or register, they order their subscriptions, right? And if they are consuming any of the charged APIs, then probably, they make the payments, and any issues that they have, they can raise support requests through that, right? And typically, once they have a subscription, they get a key, and so using the API gateway, basically you manage their requests, right? And you capture their usage and consumption, because you have to do any billing, that would be important for them. Moving on, so essentially, like when it comes to commercializing your API assets, right? If you were to like think from from a product backlog, or like features and capability perspective, right? So the API platform, primarily can be grouped, the capabilities can be grouped into three broader buckets, right? The first bucket is what I call as the productization bucket, which is basically how do you identify and define the, what are the APIs that needs to be monetized, right? And what is their management and selling strategy as digital projects, right? I mean, you're gonna, create that, like the what I call as the appeal, right, to the developer audience to use these APIs, right? And you can have different, models, how you productize your APIs, right? I will not go into detail of that, but productization workstream will kind of cover, all that aspects of it. Then we have the platform administration, right, which basically focuses on how, how you're going to host and manage all these APIs, right? What's the infrastructure that's going to look like, right? And like how would you apply, like the various, how would you do publishing of the APIs and all? And we'll look into these blocks in little more detail in subsequent slides as well. And the third important bucket is the consumer experience, right? And this is driven by your brand marketing strategy, right? And so that it's quite easier for the, the API developers, they come into your portal, they find the information that they need, and they get onboarded, and then they kind of purchase these API products. Let's take a look at the productization, feature area. So typically, like these are the high level things, like in the productization, you need to identify what are the API products that you have, right? And how they translate to, the physical assets, right? I mean, how these would be, served. These API, I mean, API product might be a logical concept, but how it actually would be served through a physical asset or a microservice or an API service that you're going to implement, right? And any variants that you're going to have, right, of the same API, along with, like you capture all the, the metadata and the monetization related information, such as, any rate plans, right? And what are the tariffs, right? And what are the usage limits? So for, let's say that you have a free tier, maybe, you're only able to invoke, say, like 10 requests per day. And then when you go for standard or premium tiers, which would be like, pay as you go, or more like, fixed cost pricing, you probably have, greater usage limits. So this whole productization, like the feature area, would kind of focus on that, right? Then we have the API platform administration, where, like essentially it starts with, like the what is your strategy to do the registrations, right? And is there any approval process, right? And then what is the API catalog, right? And how you have organized all of that, right? And what is the documentation that you're going to provide around your API catalog, right? And then how do you derive insights and analytics, right, from the usage, consumption, and revenue data that comes in, right? And which basically feeds to your KPIs, which are like the business metrics, which is used as the insights for the enterprises to further strategize their API assets, right? And then you have this whole billing and invoicing, where you have this whole order management, tracking, and invoice generation. I mean, these are like standard billing and invoicing. Any kind of whenever you have any kind of a solution like this, you need to have that, right? And then you need to have a even support, like people who are going to support any cases that get created, so that they are able to respond faster to any kind of issues that the consumers may be experiencing. And what falls under the API consumer experience? So as we have seen, like typically it should offer you the ability to browse products, right? And find the information that you want. And you should be able to also register, like sign up, like and So we have listed that that you can sign up as an individual or a business, and like B2C. We need to support the Azure B2C or any other similar things. Okay, and integration with social and IDB, and then you have your whole account process, right? And mostly it would be self-service, right? You kind of manage your profile, manage your subscriptions, right? And and make payments. And there's a rich element about the UX part of it, right? And what are the channels that you want to support this app, or like how the consumers would kind of interact with your platform. You do like web, mobile, or even responsive, right? And different devices and form factors that you need to have. So this kind of summarizes what are the key requirements that we expect from any kind of API developer portal kind of a solution, right? So with this, we'll take a short break, okay? And like I'll just request Aditya to kind of share his experience, and then we'll look into part 2 where we will discuss about the solution approach and the demo. Aditya, over to
Yep.
you.
Thanks, Subhajit. Hi, everyone. Hope you all are enjoying the session. I'm Aditya Saladi and I'm a technical consultant in Microsoft. And I'm here to share my Microsoft journey. Before that, let me give you a quick background about myself. Before I joined Microsoft, I have worked with 2 tech startups in Hyderabad, and Microsoft was always my dream company. Like any other person aspiring to be part of Microsoft, my expectations were that I would get to work with like-minded people and set of smart folks, and learn from them and get to work on the latest technologies, do high quality work, and get opportunity in customer engagement and contributing in envisioning solutions for the requirements. And of course, goes without saying, being part of an organization like a brand with Microsoft. So these are the expectations that were running back of my mind before joining Microsoft. But after joining in Microsoft and having spent like close to 3 years, I realized that all my expectations, all my actual experience exceeded my expectations. I've experienced everything that I've hoped for and more. And working as part of this tech savvy organization, I got an opportunity to lay my hands in the latest tech. And I had great learnings when collaborating with diverse set of people. When I mean to say diverse set of people, it's not just about the gender. I mean to say diverse set of people in terms of skill set, ability, culture, and cross-functional teams. It's about being able to understand the core technologies through and through and leverage them to tackle different challenges that we hear from our customers and deliver a satisfying solution to the customer. And an environment which provided an open ground to conduct healthy discussions and brainstorm ideas to deliver the features. Above all, our team is the frontliner for the customer to go to for any solution or a product innovation that they wish Microsoft to take lead in. And one thing that always feels me proud of is the requests that and the feedback that we receive from our customers in turn help the Microsoft product group to further innovate and build the next set of features to help us achieve our customer-centric goals and priorities. And if you are one of those who are aspiring to experience your next amazing journey, yes, we are from Microsoft Industry Solutions, Azure Cloud and AI team, and we are currently looking for amazing folks like you for the technical consultant role in Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Noida locations. And if you are interested or you want to know more about the opportunity, please do fill the Excel sheet that was mentioned in the meetup link description. And I think that's also shared in this chart. And once you've filled it, our HR team will get in touch with you shortly. And now I'll hand over it to Subhajit.
Yeah, thanks, Aditya. So yeah, team, feel free to apply for the positions that I'm sure those are exciting opportunities. Okay, all right, so we'll move on. So let's look at, I mean, the central part of any kind of API developer experience is this the Azure API Management is the key product that we use, that, right? So let's look at the capabilities of Azure API Management that should be the basis of your solution. So it's broadly distributed in 5 areas. The first is definitely the API publishing. Basically, it offers an administrative interface, wherein you can publish these APIs for external and internal consumption, right? And through additional, you can apply the additional controls via advanced policies, and so that you can do like request throttling, or you can define quotas, right? So that you can you ensure that the API consumers and or your API service does not go in outage, because of one particular consumer, trying to do some crazy stuff with it, right? Then we have the API gateway. I mean, Azure API Management. The API gateway is basically acts as your entry point, right? And it's you can scale it, right, as needed, and it provides you the necessary infrastructure. And we do support like multiple region. The gateways can be provisioned in multiple regions as well. Yeah, and then we have the API developer portal. It is primarily targeted for the developer community, and we'll look into these in the demo shortly, right? And it provides you information about the list of published APIs and how you can invoke them. It's primarily used for a developer to understand and kind of like get some feel of what does it take to integrate with any API. Then you get this whole API lifecycle management, right? And you can version control your APIs, and so that you support backward compatibility also, right? And like you ensure that even while the developers access the latest version of your APIs, but still the existing endpoints or the older endpoints are still accessible, right? In case any other applications are still using them. And then this whole capability of analytics and matrices, right, which gives you useful like information about what is the performance, okay, are there any security threats, right, what are the exceptions and what is the availability of the service, right? And you can actually derive a lot of insights, okay, by integrating with application insights, and you get all the usage information which can tell you about the what is the user segmentation, geo distribution of the consumers, and various other KPIs can be derived by extending with application insights. So when it comes to API production, what does a conceptual architecture look like, right, at a high level? So as you may see, it's a busy. I mean, in this diagram, like try to depict the most of the parts. So basically the black box in the center, it's your the list of monetized APIs, right? And you access them through the API gateway. And on the left side, as you may see that the connected experience can be anybody, right? I mean, it could be browsers, phones, like devices, like any kind of PDS or or kiosk or anything, whatever you can think of, right? Anything that can do an API integration is actually a subscriber of your APIs, right? And the various users, right? I mean, either they are individuals or enterprises or even the administrators, right? So they make use of all these various portals, right? So we have the consumer portal, the developer portal, the admin portal, and the Azure portal, right? To operate. And yeah, I mean the first two are more like like they are like consumer facing, so they have a very nice visualization and all that kind of stuff, right? And the admin portals are targeted for administrators, how they manage all these things, right? And then you have this whole, I mean, we saw that there were like all these capabilities that you needed for building a like a full-blown solution. So the the blocks in the the red, which is the business services and the business data, they kind of offer you that functionality, right? And what happens is that as you consume the APIs, you collect all your usage and consumption data, right? And then you kind of feed it via daily exports, right? And then you have your engine that computes the pricing, okay, based on like whatever rates you have, it charges, and then your calculation engine will then feed into your business data system, so that eventually you can charge the customer. So like what are the technology choices, right, that you typically make for the various solution blocks, right? So we know that the first big thing is a digital marketing portal, right, where basically we have this API catalog, and which should support a bit of collaboration, right? And it can support multilingual content. You can have discussion forums, SDKs, and toolkits. The best suited tool for that we that I recommend is to use GitHub Enterprise and GitHub Pages, right? GitHub Pages gives you an ability to build a portal. You get up and running with a portal in no time, okay? And you can integrate with other features of that GitHub comes with through that portal, so that you get a very good developer experience there. Then comes this whole specification, like where you need to have typically OpenAPI is quite common in that space, right? So you have your API products, the developer guidance, and if you want to test API operations, so you'd go with the Azure API Management and the developer portal, right? And then the third part would be the account management and subscription registration, and like and raising of the requests and all. So typically a good solution could be Azure.NET, the core web app integrated with Azure B2C. However, there could be solution alternatives to this because it's a pure line of business custom application. So essentially, if you look at all these blocks, they are part of your what I call as the enhanced API developer experience, right? Okay. So let's take a. So before I jump into the demo, I just want to do a quick check if there are any questions anybody has, that I can provide some clarity. Okay. There was, I think somebody said all depends on the API blueprint requirement. Naveen, could you clarify on that a bit? I just want to understand what was the point or a question you had, if you had. Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Subhajit.
Okay. Fine, I think we'll move on. So let me. Okay, yeah, that's right. Yes, that's right. Okay. Let me start sharing. Okay. So let me 1 second. 1 second. So let me know when you're able to see. Okay. So the first thing, what I wanted to demonstrate is the capability of GitHub. Essentially you can build. So if you see this is I mean I don't have custom domain names, so that's why I'm kind of using this one, the one that GitHub provides. But essentially what I've done is that I have a repo, like in GitHub, and with which which is a public repo, and in which we have enabled the GitHub pages, and all I have is a static website. I've picked up one of the starter templates that's there, right? And with little tweaks using Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code, I just deployed it, and I get this very nice experience, as you may see, right? So essentially, you don't need separate hosting. Your code becomes your hosting, and and you get this API portal pretty much, and then you can link back with, if you have any SDKs. You can link back with your API SDKs. I mean, this is just a sample that I created yesterday, so there's not much thing, but essentially you can link back with any feature of GitHub that you want through your custom portal. I mean, through this static website that you have created, right? And let's say that that these are the APIs or API products that I have, right? So when I click on them, so it would so essentially I should get redirected to this. So if you see this is the API developer portal, API management developer portal, and this uses the Jamstack, the technology, and you can you can do authoring of it quite easily, right? And if you go to the APIs for it, or let's say that we go to the products, so we see the Lorem product over there, right? And we can also get to see what are the various APIs. So currently, if you see that we just have this Eco API, which is published as part of this product. We have, say, Magna is the another product that we have, and we can see that there are multiple APIs, right? And when you go inside any of these APIs, so we can look at the Eco one itself. So for every operation, you would see that how you can easily browse through the the various the documentation that is provided, and you can also kind of click on the try it, so that will give you an option to kind of invoke, and it will give you all the. So if you're using any other tools using which you want to kind of invoke this, so it will give you all the information, and you can try and check whether it works for you or not. So this is actually quite cool. I mean, this API developer portal offered by Azure API Management, pretty much out of the box, right? And so how do you do the API publishing? So I will share that as well. So let me jump to this one. So when you go into your Azure portal, so you get to see this API management, right? So this is your kind of the administration tool for your API management and authoring, right? And you publish your APIs. So when you click on the APIs, it will allow you an ability to publish your APIs. So as you can see, you can easily import. So if you have your API definition files, you can import them using this these particular options that's available over there. And once you've imported the APIs, you can link them to products. So I mean, the starter and the unlimited, it comes out of the box. So I've just created two more custom entries, Lorem and the Magna. And let's say that the Lorem is the product that is is in the free tier, right? And so how do you implement, like throttling, right? So essentially this concept of policies. So you go in and you kind of use this easy to use interface, and you capture, and you write in a policy. So I've taken an example, where we are saying that depending on the client IP address, we just want to limit to say, like about 100K calls, right? And or 10 kilobytes per bandwidth per month, right? So you put in your rate limit and your quota that you would like to support, and it is using the requested IP address, right? And there is a whole lot of documentation available, in terms of what are this, the Azure API management, what are the various policies that you can apply, right? And I mean, you can look at the set quota usage by subscription as well, right? Or by key. So depending on, what is your context and need, you would need to configure those policies, and there's a whole lot of, other policies also that you can use. But for the discussion, we are just going to limit to this one, right? And you basically can configure the at a product level, right? There is also an option to kind of I mean, it's all like, like it follows the concept of top down. So you can do the policy at a product level. You can do it at an API level as well. So when you go to the API over here, also you have the ability to specify the policy, and by base it means that it kind of inherits from the top, right? So you can do that, right? So that you either apply at an API level or at a product level. It depends on, like what's your suitability and what's your purpose that for which you're using it, right? And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much right. You can configure, all this other stuff, right? So this is how you manage your APIs, right? And then you get, I mean, the subscriptions are where, through where basically you will have to create, and through this you measure your consumption, right? So anytime you need to do a consumption, you will have to kind of create these subscriptions, which are nothing but keys. And whenever the APIs are invoked, the developers will have to make use of those keys to invoke these APIs. And there is built-in report support, like so from the consumption data. I mean, if you go to this reference API management reports, right? It will tell you, like, okay, if you go by list by product. So we'll take an example, or rather let's use by subscription. Yeah, most of them, they have the same schema format. So essentially you get this whole so if you look here, so it will give you an ability to filter the data and other things, right? And so you get this report collection. I'm just trying to see. Yeah, so you will get this whole data, which is, like, okay, what are the APIs, how many times they were used, right? How many counts were blocked, call success, right? So you get this very nice report, and it gives you the dump is in a JSON format. And using that, you can, like build your calculation engine to kind of, like figure out, that what was used, and, like and apply any additional policies, or if the subscription has to be, suspended, if the I mean, typically if the quota is exceeded, then the API consumer won't get any further requests won't be served. Okay, but any billing related stuff, you'll have to leverage this data that's there, right? Okay. Yeah, and then as you see here, so we have all these analytics and application insights. people who are familiar, with these tools, I mean, they can, you can kind of view how things are moving. Like as I explained to you, this analytics will give you real-time information about, all the APIs and their performance, right? And yeah, and pretty much, and you get all this. So for the developer portal, you get this ability that so essentially it's now integrated with the Azure portal, and you can basically go here to the out of the box. So this is the out of the box developer portal. However, there is a way. Uh, so in GitHub, there is a, like you get some tools that you can kind of use to create an export and probably host in your own as well if you would like to. So with the Jamstack, like you get this browser based way to kind of, modify the look and feel. Say you want to get rid of this button, like it's pretty much you click on it, and then when you do a save, it will save the look and feel of this page. So let's see, let's try that. Okay. And I think it takes about 2-3 minutes to reflect. So we'll just check. And I mean, you get all these pages, and you can add your new pages if you want. You can change and or you can remove stuff, right? Which it depends, what you want, and you can whenever you would like to use this, you can like make those changes. Let's see here. Okay, so we do have a published revision. So let's hit this. So let's hit. If you open it from the developer portal, it opens in the edit mode. So we'll go back to our let's see. So you can see that button is no longer visible, right? So yeah, pretty much this, and yeah, you can, I mean, as I was saying, the GitHub capabilities and all. So this kind of also concludes my demo. We can move on to any questions the team has. Yeah, so I can take any questions if the team has. Okay, so I'm reading out the questions that are there in the chat. Okay. Which would go. Case studies of Azure API, if any, would be very useful. Yeah, I mean, you can explore GitHub, and you can also explore the, I mean, you can go to the documentation of Azure API Management, and there you can find, like the references. And you should be, is there any specific thing that you wanted, Amber?
Yeah, yes, a specific question was this Ambarish here.
Yeah.
Is there anything which has been deployed into production, meaning any case studies of companies who have done it? That I was just looking through, and maybe I'm not finding the right spot. So if there is anything like that, that would be great to hear. Because as you perhaps know, this API field is quite crowded with
Mhm.
other like MuleSoft, APG, and all these.
Yeah.
So whenever we are proposing to customers, so
Mhm.
this meaning if there is any case study, it helps us actually.
So I will have to check if there are any official case studies or not.
Yes,
But
yes.
typically,
Uh,
I mean, API management is a heavily used product within like most of our customer experiences, right?
okay, okay, okay. That's very good. Okay, then it is not a problem.
I mean, I've been personally working on this API management for the past 3-4 years now with multiple customers, right? Unfortunately, I won't be able to disclose those names here in this call, but
That's okay.
all I'm saying, like this is something that is heavily used. I
Okay.
mean, APG is mostly for the Google Cloud, right? I mean, for the Azure Cloud, we
No,
recommend.
no, meaning here's the thing. Many companies they're quite. I do not know or for some odd reason.
Mhm,
Uh, they had this APG thing.
mhm.
They had bought it for because previously they were on-prem as well as Azure or something, so they bought these. This is one case. Then there are customers who have bought like MuleSoft.
Correct.
Hmm.
Yes.
MuleSoft is also very popular that we are seeing. So what is happening? So for certain industries which are very traditional,
Mhm.
people were very much on-prem. They are now moving into cloud, and obviously some industries are quite slow in moving to cloud. It's not
Right.
some industries are not like finance where they would just move into and retail. So are quite traditional industries. So that is why. So MuleSoft we are seeing Delboomi also quite in a lot of
Yeah.
places.
Okay.
So when we are when I'm coming in and saying that we should go for it, or we just then there is already a product. So I was just wondering if there is any real maybe it's very difficult for you to articulate, but if there is anything on that lines like this has been implemented and so on and so forth, and any comparison, obviously you won't have these type of things in public, maybe you'll have it in your things,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah. Yeah.
will not go into that, but
Right.
if there is any such documentation, any such thing, that would be very helpful. And as you are saying, it is a widely used product, so there should be. Mm,
Yeah. So what I suggest is that you can take a
mm.
look at there's a white paper on API management. Okay.
Okay, okay.
And which will also be, I would say whatever I presented here, is
Mm.
also covered in that white paper and, few additional topics also. Okay.
Okay,
So
okay,
maybe you can take a look at that.
okay.
I will flash the link how to get to there. 1 second. Yeah, it was well published a while ago though, but
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
fine. So,
pasted
so
the
if
link
it
here.
is
Okay.
if it is already there, then I can find out in the docs. It is oh, you have already given. Okay.
Yeah. And all I'm saying, you will find see there are two concepts that I presented in this talk today, right? So one is around the
Mm,
GitHub, right? How you can
mm,
use GitHub Enterprise, GitHub Pages, and
mm,
other things to build that consumer
mm,
portal that we have, right? Without,
mm,
as you must may have seen, right? Without much
mm,
effort, right?
mm,
Just yeah, I mean some HTML you'll have to play around with it, but
mm,
as I said, readily available templates, starter kits are there. Using that,
mm,
you should be able to up and running in few days, right? No longer you need to wait for months to deliver a portal, right?
mm,
And then API management is being the Microsoft's offering in this space, and I do understand that the competitors that you mentioned, right?
mm, mm,
And but like I haven't explored the competitor tools that much,
mm,
but as I've used API management, I've seen that that without much coding, with
mm,
zero or no coding, right, you can actually get very rich experience. Okay. And also this whole governance and control, right, on on
mm,
on
mm,
your
mm,
API assets, right? So
mm,
I'm sure the computer tools would also offer that, but I
mm,
believe this
mm, mm,
API management as generic, the capabilities would be probably same across all the tools, right? Because
mm,
they are
mm,
in the same
mm,
space.
mhm. Yes, yes. I'm just going through that white paper. Yes, there are a lot of case studies here. Okay. I was looking for that only. Okay. Okay. Is there anything like, does it appear, meaning I'm just asking a question, quite
Mm.
naive might be.
Yeah.
Uh, is there anything like a Gartner on this topic? Like people like all these Gartner quadrants.
Yeah, there
So,
is one. So in the
uh-huh,
enterprise space, I think let me find that for you.
uh-huh.
Gartner.
So this is the one. This is good. And this has actually got something with API management. This is API management. Some fantasy data and all this is Blackboard. Okay. Yes. So this is good. Weather data, that is good. If you have, if you come across, I'll be reading it in through. If you have any manufacturing as well as utilities customers doing it, it would be nice to have also. Because these are the more traditional companies. So, so if there is anything you have or you come across any link, it would be nice if you could share. I'll also look into it.
Sure. Probably, I mean, we'll try to connect offline on that. Okay,
Yes,
and
yes, yes,
yeah, and we
yes,
can
yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
exchange notes
Sure.
there.
Yes,
I'll have to
yes,
look up. I
yes.
mean, I'm sure it's
Yes, yes.
there.
Yes,
Yeah.
sure. It must be there.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions? I see like somebody mentioned HTTPS URL to convert APIM. What was the question there? Trilochan Naik, I think.
Subhajit?
Yeah.
Yes. So I have a HTTPS URL with the basic authentication name, user ID, password. So I want to make it a secure APIM.
Okay.
So and I want to put some subscription. So two authentication is there, user ID, password. So I want to add one additional authentication.
Okay.
So how to do it in API management?
So when you're saying authentication, see user ID password, that is basic, right? I mean, basically you will be
Yes.
passing it as part of your request header, right? When you're
Yes.
invoking,
So
right?
yes, I want to provide the URL APIM URL instead of the my HTTPS URL to the customer.
Let me okay. So basically there are two URLs that we are talking about, right? One is the API
Yes.
gateway URL, which is
Yes.
basically used for invoking the API. That can be
Yes.
on HTTPS. All you need to do is you need to have a SSL certificate, a valid trusted SSL certificate deployed and configured in Azure API Management. And that way Azure API Management will honor that. I mean, it will, it would be able to see what is the intent of HTTPS, right? Basically, the traffic gets encrypted, right, from the source to destination using the certificate that you're going to use.
Okay.
Right. So the moment you say HTTPS, so APIM, when the traffic is received by APIM, for it to decrypt, it needs to have that certificate installed with it, right?
Okay.
So there is a provision in APIM. Let me just, if you want, I can point it out to you. Because for the production use, we always use proper custom domains, right? We don't use self-signed certificates. So if you see here, there's a section called custom domains where you can add you can add your domain and you can attach a certificate, right? And that certificate should be, we recommend it to be stored as part of the key vault so that you can manage the lifecycle of it, right? Alternatively, you can upload it to the API itself, but we don't usually, when it's ability, but we recommend to use key vault. So once you do this configuration, then this APIM. So see, usually what happens, there is this concept. So let me show you this. So you see this gateway URL,
Yes.
HTTPS. If you are using this is itself, this is an Azure provided URL. So this .azure-api.net, right? And which is already on HTTPS. So whenever you will invoke an API using this way, it is already on HTTPS. It is only when you need custom domains, like something that your customer may want, right? So that's when you will have to go for that custom domain thing.
Yes, but here I'm asking about different things. So we have it already. We have a domain. We HTTPS domain, which HTTPS authentication also. But we don't want to share the URL to the customers. We want to make a wrapping with the APIM and provide the URL with the subscription key.
Yeah, so essentially your backend API, you don't want to expose your backend API. You just need to create an entry as an API, which we have over here, right? So I'll show you the eco example. So if you take the eco API example, so this is your backend API, HTTP eco API cloud app, whatever it is, right? You have
Yes.
wrapped it. So this is not available to say outside customers. If they have to access this API, they have to come via APIM, for which the URL is different. And
Yes.
using policies, you can do validation, right? I mean, even that authentication that you said, right? So it would be part of your request header, right? So you can do a check header. So there is something concept here. So if you see check HTTP header, so you can check the header if you're using, like, if you want to use this, or it can be passed through. I mean, you did not do any checking at APIM level. Okay, it can be just passed through. It will, whatever it is received, it will pass through to the backend API, and backend API will do the validation whether it's a valid, like basic auth credential has been provided or not.
Okay. Go.
Okay. So think of API gateway to be like a wrapper only. I mean, it's a forward proxy, let's say.
Yes.
It will receive a request and it will forward it to the backend actual API. Okay, it is just that it will offer you a governance layer on top of your, multiple. So in the back end, you may have different types of systems, right? I mean, there could be microservices hosted in AKS, or you can have some, some running on virtual machines, some running on app services, right? Anything.
Yes.
So you have a variety of technology that can be used to host your API endpoints, but all of them. So this would be your, like, the facade layer, right? So the entry point would be consolidated in API management.
Yes. So we have to start with create a product, then we can link the product with.
So product is a logical grouping. It is not necessary. It is not necessary. So all I'm saying, if you read the documentation, you'll understand. So the product is a logical grouping, and it is meant for, as I said, like, if you want to group APIs. So for example, as I showed you, right, that I have only Eco API under this product, whereas under Magna I have, these things, right? And the set policies that I applied was different, right? So though the API remains the same, but the product would control how you are accessing that API.
Yes, like we have, say we have a sales and marketing department, we have HR department. So every department we can make a product. So under the product, all the API we can put under the product, right?
Yeah, all I'm saying, like, I mean, exactly, I won't be able to. I mean, I can't recommend that way, but if I understand your scenario better, I can suggest the right grouping. But yes, essentially, products and APIs are the way how you organize your information or your APIs in APIM.
Okay.
Is there any other question? Yeah, so how are payment subscription modules taken care? Then they are not synchronous. Yeah, does it provide rate limiting options? Yes. So rate limiting, I just showed you also one example, right? That in APIM, you can do the rate limiting. We looked at this one, and we saw this policy that you can do rate limit by key, or you can do by quota, right? So whatever it is that you want, you can configure it, right? And regarding the billing and other things, right? So as I was saying, that it all depends on what is your strategy, right? So let's say that you have a standard API product, and via rate limiting, you can ensure that the consumers will never exceed what as many calls that they have, and you can have a monthly charging, where you say that that every month you are allowed to, say, invoke this API, say, 10,000 times, and you will be charged a flat rate of, say, $10. Okay, and so that's the way you have to do. Okay, so the productization, I haven't gone into deep into deep into that, because that would fall under the business domain. Okay, how how you would like to kind of, like productize your API assets, what is your, like revenue model and all those things. So I wouldn't go deeper into that because that's a subject in itself. Okay. What is the best auth way? Yeah, I mean, the recommendation is use OAuth with Azure AD or Azure AD B2C. That's the standard recommendation. Alternatively, you can explore digital, I mean, the certificates. That is still more secure, right? We usually don't recommend basic auth because while I mean, as you may know that you can have this man in the middle or the spoofing. There's a possibility of always something happening by which like you can get the, because you're passing user ID and password mostly in a unencrypted format, right? Unless you have written some way to do encryption and all. So but yeah, I mean, these are the options. I mean, API management, if you read authentication options, you will find that both being our recommended way. Any other questions? Okay, Rashmita, so I think we are kind of done. I don't see any other questions.
Sure. Thank you, Subhajit, so much for today's session, and thank you all for joining us today. Please feel free to do the event check-in and do share your feedback with us. It will help us choose our topics better that suit our audiences. Also, please visit our Microsoft Reactor Bengaluru meetup page for more upcoming sessions. Thank you all once again and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, Subhajit.
Thank
Thank
you
you everyone for joining. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.